Greetings, friends. So we've been hearing about the incidents in Springfield, Ohio, where Haitian immigrants have eaten the cats and dogs who belong to the Americans who had lived in the town and who are horrified by the huge inundation of Haitian immigrants in recent years, which have completely swamped the town and changed everything. This highlights the problems with mass immigration and bringing in incompatible people into the United States. And it shows how moral standards and standards of what is fit to eat, what is clean, what is right are different between different peoples. In the uproar over these incidents, you've seen posts on X by popular accounts which say things to the effect that it's completely barbaric to eat a dog or a cat on principle. These animals are members of the family. These animals provide joy and love. And what kind of a sick person could ever kill an animal like a dog that is so full of joy and love and is man's best friend and has been so for thousands of years? And this comment was directed towards the leftists who are beginning to come out and play cover for the incidents in Springfield, because they have to protect the concept of mass immigration and multiculturalism. There was a post by some lefty who was saying, honestly, there's no difference between eating a pig and a dog. That's the justification he was taking. Now, was that justification taken in good faith? Is he being sincere? Probably not, because the real issue is that this is an affront to the culture of the people who live there. They're not used to eating cats and dogs. And besides the fact you stole their property, that's the issue for me. I do believe you shouldn't eat cats and dogs. They're dirty animals. But the main issue is that they stole other people's cats and dogs. And I'm friends with some people who love dogs. That's fine. But many dog lovers are emotional people. This includes men and women. And they will react in very emotional, negative ways when you challenge their assumption that dogs are not special. So I had to, in this thread, come out and agree with the lefty. I said, hey, I'm on the right, but in this case, it's true. A pig is no different than a dog. There's no ultimate justification to eat one and not eat the other. And if you may have been following this channel for years, I had a video, 5-6 years ago, where I was reacting to the vegan propaganda that they were putting on public transit. And it was a poster with a pig and a dog. And the heading was, why eat one and love the other? And I agreed with the vegans. They had a great point, and I thanked the vegans at that time because they showed me that you should pretty much consider eating both of them. They're right. The vegans did a good job. Why eat the pig and love the dog? You should eat both of them. Why not eat both of them? You can love the taste of both of them. Now, personally, I wouldn't do that. I think dogs are dirty. Because I focused on dogs being dirty, the dog lovers who were fighting me in the comments thought that one of them was like, well, you must be a Muslim. I'm not a Muslim. Again, one-dimensional projection. Everyone on the good team has to love dogs. And I bet they love it when the dog licks them on the face. I bet they're okay with that. And that's another issue altogether. I could do a video on that altogether. The fact that a man, let's forget women, a man will stoop down, get emotionally excited, let the dog lick him on the lips. Maybe he kisses it on the nose, or the muzzle, or the snout, whatever it is. So anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's just be clear. That's why I wouldn't eat the dog. But the pig is a dirty animal. The dog's a dirty animal. The dog will eat the droppings, either of other dogs or whatever. There's the dog smell, the dog breath, the way the apartment smells when you have a dog, especially a big dog, the shedding of the hair. Yes, it's not a clean animal, and there's nothing wrong with having a dog. That's fine. But let's just be clear, it's not the cleanest animal. The idea that it's man's best friend because it's so emotional and can mimic human emotions, that only travels so far that you could find other animals that could do that we could eat. I mean, goats and sheep are bred for being killed. They're kind of dumber, so they don't have quite the emotionality of a dog. But to give the vegans credit, they could argue this to show that they're exactly the same, and I would have no problem conceding. I would just say, why not eat both of them then? But the interesting thing is the reactions of the dog lovers, that I would question the sacred spot for the dogs. It wasn't really concerning cats in this conversation. It was mainly the dogs, but everything would apply to cats too. And I had a cat when I was a kid, and that's fine. Cats are nice. But one guy was saying, he said, "You're spiritually brown." I'm spiritually brown because of what I've been saying, essentially. Up to now, basically what I've been communicating here is the view I was putting forth to these guys, and the conclusion was, well, you're spiritually brown. And I had to say, well, if that means that I don't like the dog slobbering on my face and having a dog around, I don't really believe a dog should be in a house. It was always meant to be outside. And they'll admit that too if you press them on this. They'll admit that they're like the dog is happiest in the wild, in the forest, like hunting or as security. We're in urban areas, most of us now. But the conclusion is that, well, you're spiritually brown. You're on the side of the Haitians because you won't affirm the sacred spot of the dog as man's best friend, as basically a member of the family. Even though when the dog gets old and sick, are you going to let it die or are you going to put it down? For those of you who say you will let it die naturally without any injection to put it down, then I can respect that. You are consistent with treating it as a member of the family, as a human. But for those of you who regard it as a member of the family, and then it gets old and sick, and then you give it an injection to put it out of its suffering, then I don't respect you. You are not adhering to your standards that it's a member of the family. That's not consistent. And I believe most of you would fit into the latter category. Most of you. So I told him, well, if it means I won't consent to having a dog slobber over me like that, and regarding the dog as a human being, well, I guess I must be spiritually brown. Well, guys, mera naam Matthew hai. As another conclusion is that I had a troubled childhood. Again, it's not all dog lovers, but it's a large proportion of them on the right. They will react with the psychologizing tactic that you see among the left. They're just like the left in this regard. Oh, you don't love dogs? You hate dogs? Apparently I hate dogs because I regard them as an animal like other animals. I don't actually want dogs to suffer. I don't think most people should own dogs as pets. I think the dogs should be serving a purpose, but that's getting beside the point here. They psychologize. They say, if you don't recognize my view of the sacred nature of the dog as this being of love, pure love, between the natural world and man, then you had a troubled childhood. You never got any love as a child. You never had a pet. Well, actually, we had a pet cat for many years, till I was in my mid-teens. The cat was nice, and then we had another cat after that, same color, kind of like cinder colored. Actually, the first name's cat was Cinder. Then there was Merlin, same kind of cindered ash gray. And those cats are really smart, killed a lot of mice. An outdoor cat, must have been a happy cat that had spent all those years outside. That was great. But when I lived on my own, I never felt the desire to have a pet. So I guess that means I never had any love as a child. They're not big on logical fallacies. These dog lover people on the right or on the left, they're not very big on logical fallacies. They're willing to just project all these things onto you. The psychologizing is the worst. Oh, you must be a Muslim. Because I was focusing on pigs and dogs, because I was using that as an example, the pig and the dog, which is a common example, the one guy thinks that, well, I must be a Muslim because I'm using the example of the pig, which is a fair assumption because Muslims don't eat pork. They regard it as a dirty animal. But that's a stupid logical fallacy. Not everyone who thinks a dog is a kind of a dirty animal and shouldn't be regarded as a member of the family, not everyone who has that view is a Muslim. I don't think that's very hard to communicate. But I guess I'm spiritually brown. I was trying to tell this guy who concluded that I must be a Muslim. I'm like, look, dogs, they serve outside the cities primarily, optimally. They serve in the outdoor environment as security, as hunting companions, and sometimes for other practical purposes like shepherding, but in the outdoor environment. That's when they're in their element. And then he turned around and said, what are you talking about? Dogs serve as security in cities. And then because I was honest and I admitted to him that yes, in some situations a dog is like a necessary security in cities. Like if you live in the wrong part of Chicago and you need a badass dog because some hood rats might come through the front porch. But in that case, you're going to need a gun. You're going to need a lot. Like if you're in that situation where you need a dog really for security in the modern world, you're probably going to need a lot of other security too. And at that point, like the dog's not going to be the primary factor to save your life, but it's an aid. It's a help. So yes, I can admit that it's like raw security, like to alert you to an intruder coming when we live in dense areas in the cities. I mean, again, it's a rural thing. That's fine. That's the natural environment of the dog. Let the dog be in the forest. And I have the dog lovers telling me the same thing. Oh, I had so much great times with my dog. The dog is wonderful. And what are they describing? Being out in the woods with their dog. Yeah, thank you. That's my point. I agree with you. Not in the city with condos where people get micro dogs that should have never been created, Frankenstein suffering creatures. The dog becomes the replacement child. It's not a step on the way to having children for many people. It's not. That's a decreasing phenomenon. Now it's the permanent thing for many people, men and women included, and the cat or whatever other pet. You know, I also don't believe in having zoos. Like, don't do that to animals. Don't put animals in zoos. Like, leave them alone. So yeah, at the end of the day, just stick with the argument. That's property. You can't eat other people's property. And guess what? Even if it's not other people's property, we don't support eating cats and dogs because we regard it as gross. We regard it as something that is not in line with our tradition here. Just stick to that. Don't try to actually justify the dog as being something special. You don't have to. It's enough to just leave it at, that's our culture. We don't do that here. Then I can respect that view, just like other cultures would have the same thing. You can't get hamburgers in India. The McDonald's in India is not going to serve beef. And I don't think they're going to serve anything with pork either because of all the Muslims in India. The Hindus and the Muslims. It doesn't matter. It's just the emotion that people react with when you challenge their sacred animals. Hasta luego, amigos.